We begin the current Daf Masechta Shabbos Daf Chavtes. We begin 3 lines Daf at the top of the Yomid, where we continue the discussion from the previous Daf. Our shiur is co-sponsored by Kazrich and Yecheskel, Torah Anytime, Daf Achaim, all those who are with us on Zoom. We appreciate you all the time. Some ideas we're going to speak about today's Daf is regarding Psilas HaBeged. Our Mishnah spoke about a unique case of the thread of a garment, which means to say when they would make the threads, there was two elements they would do. You would fold a cloth and you would singe it. But let's say it was only folded and wasn't singed. We had a double machlekes in the Mishnah between Lezer and Rekiva regarding if A, it's Mekabel Tumah, and B, if you could use it for the Ner of Shabbos. So we're going to discuss the second halacha regarding lighting it as Ner Shabbos. Additionally, we're going to speak about the custom about burning the wicks before Shabbos, if that's necessary. We're also going to discuss the parameters in general of muktzah and noilid. We're going to discuss whether one may light Shabbos candles in the lamp that has a second vessel of oil. We're going to discuss 3 different types of cases, but what happened was in Talmudic times, you would have this receptacle for the lamp, but then you didn't have enough. You needed your reservoir of oil, so you would have another one. Is that permitted or not? Which that relates to removing oil from a burning lamp, if that is prohibited because of the laws of Mechaba. And we're going to have this well-known Talmudic discussion in Machlekes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg regarding Davar she'ein miskaven, if something that's unintended, if that is permitted or forbidden. So we begin the current Daf, again Daf Chavtes Amid Aleph, 3 lines down at the top of the Yomid, where we continue with this Machlekes of our Mishnah, now specifically regarding explaining it as it applies to the laws of Ner Shabbos. Rav Amma, he says as follows, because we had this interesting machlekes, we didn't know what's the parameters of the machlekes regarding Ner of Shabbos. We said we understand regarding Tumah Tahara, is it mevatla from a beged or not when you fold it, but what's the machlekes regarding lighting as Ner Shabbos? So we had one interpretation of the previous Daf. Now the Gemara gives a second interpretation. He says, Hainu Tamid Rebbe Eliezer, says the reasoning of Rebbe Eliezer regarding if you're allowed to light it for the Ner of Shabbos, that he says you're not allowed to light for the Ner of Shabbos, is Lefi she'ein madlikin bepsila she'ena mechurachas. He says because you can't light with a wick that's not charred, and neither with rags, with garments that are not charred, because they don't light well. So it's a very simple svar that he says is that, regarding that we said tomatara, that we said, he says it's tameya, and he says it's tire. But regarding the laws of lighting for Ner Shabbos, he says simply it's not going to light well. It's not because of the first interpretation said because of noilid. It's a different discussion. It's simply because he holds it doesn't light well, which actually Taisus brings down. Interestingly, he says, so therefore he says it's for nothing that people light the wick before Shabbos and they extinguish it because they want it to be charred. He says because the halacha is never like Rebbe Eliezer. He's what's called Esh Shamuti. He's considered the one that we don't rule like, and Taisus brings a different raya, and therefore Taisus says, which that is related to the halacha, although l'Rav Chadamil so that we actually do light the candle beforehand, as the Ramah brings down. But Taisus says it's not necessary because that's Rebbe Eliezer who he says that you have to go ahead and light a wick beforehand, but that's not necessary. We hold like Rabbi Kiva that says that you don't have to light it beforehand. So says the Gemara, wait a second, if that's their machlokes that they have regarding if you could light as Ner Shabbos, then what do you do with the brisa of Rav Yosef? As we mentioned in the previous daf, he said there was a Mishnah was taught him Gimel al Gimel mitzumtzumas. That you would talk about specifically exactly that it's a garment of 3 by 3 finger breadths. So what halacha were you talking about? In other words, we had said, gishmak. What was the machlekes in the Mishnah could use as Ner Shabbos or not? That was exactly where it had 4 criteria, and then we spoke about a case if you could light it as Ner Shabbos when it's Yom Tov Erev Shabbos and everyone's going like Rabbi Yehuda and going like Ula, and that was the machlekes regarding is it mevatla from a beged, is going to be shever kli because everyone holds like Rabbi Yehuda too, and that's exactly 3 by 3 finger breadths. But based on now the new interpretation of the Mishnah, the machlekes is simply does it light well or not? So it has nothing to do with 3 by 3 finger breadths. So for what halacha was that Mishnah said that we have a specific halacha regarding 3 by 3 etzbais? Says the Gemara, it's l'inyan tumah. It is regarding the laws of tumah, which originally we didn't think is anything to do with tumah. Why would it be something specifically 3 by 3 etzbais? If anything, that more than that is for sure going to be tumah. So it's referring to a certain leniency that yes, we wanted to tell you to exactly 3 by 3. Why exactly 3 by 3? It's not like within the Mishnah Masechtas Kalim. Mishnah says Gimel al Gimel sha'amru. This that we said that the minimum of a beged becoming tummy is 3 by 3 etzbais, which is a very small piece of cloth. And we said that the only reason why it's mekabel tumah because it's fit for a poor person. That's chutz min hamalol. That's Rabbi Shimon. Shimon says the norm of those who, when you make a garment, so you make a hem from the garment to fold it over a little bit, but where you're stitching it, and then you sew it together. Now, so therefore, Rabbi Shimon holds that a garment of 3x3 finger breadths, the only reason why it's considered a significant enough to Mekabel Tumah is because a poor person will use it as a patch. So if it's considered as a kli, that's Mekabel Tumah. But he says you have to have a little bit more than a 3x3 because when you're making that cloth, you have to make a hem. So after you hem it, it has to have shalosh shalosh. So chutz min malal, except for the hem, then it's going to be shalosh shalosh. They say no, gimel gimel muchavanis, even if it's exactly 3x3. Where therefore, after you're going to stitch it, it's not going to be 3x3. Doesn't make a difference. You already consider as a chash of a thing once a 3x3. That was the teaching of Rav Yosef, that he said this leniency that even if it's exactly 3x3, not a little bit more, that when you do a hem, it's going to be 3x3. Even then, it's going to be makabel tumah to exclude from the halacha the Tanna Kama that said you need to have a little bit more. That's what we said the halacha was saying by mutzumtzumas, but not as the interpretation of the Mishnah, because it's not that 4 criteria because of Nailid. The Rabbi's interpretation is the reason why Rebbe Lev says you can't light it for Ner Shabbos. It's very simple. When you have a cloth that was just folded and went out cinch, it's not going to burn well. It's not going to be as a good candle. Rabbi Kiva disagrees, and that's a machlokes is regarding the laws of Shabbos. Now, once we introduced on the previous daf the first interpretation of Rav Bar Hava that said that one of the criterion that Rebbe Lezer and Rabbi Kiva both agreed to was the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that shivrei kelim are forbidden because of Nailed, so the Gemara continues on that theme. I'm Rabbi Yehuda Merav, and the halacha is like this, that masikin bekelim, you could light on Yom Tov, you could take a keli which is not muktzah because it's usable, you could use it for whatever it is, so you could use it as fuel for the fire, but the masikin b'shivei kelim, like we said in the previous stuff, you can't use broken pieces of vessels, because like we said, that's what's called Nailed, that's the Rabbi Yehuda. Rav is saying over the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and that's how he rules that. This is Nailed because you never had, the whole concept of muktzah, we'll speak about later in this Masechta, is that it's set aside. So we say set aside that you weren't going to use it for Shabbos or Yom Tov, and because this is something that you didn't have in mind. You didn't have in mind to use it in this capacity. You had in mind to use it as a bowl. Now this should become you didn't. Therefore, that's called Nailed. Therefore, that's considered muktzah. That's the Rebbe Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says no, it's going to be permitted even by shivei kelim. That's one case. Case number 2, and these 3 cases are all very similar, and the Gemara is going to discuss why it was necessary to say them all. Masikim b'tamar. So you're allowed to go ahead and throw dates into the fire to use as fuel. Why? Because since you're allowed to move it, it's not muktzah, you could use it for eating, so it's also fit to use it as fuel for the fire. But the halacha is, achlan, let's say you ate it on Yom Tov, ein masikim b'gari nehem. You cannot use the date pits for fuel in the fire, because that's nailed. You didn't have this date element before you ate it. It's a new thing. So therefore, it's muktzah. That's the Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon said no, it's permitted. The next halach is masikin be'agazim. You could take nuts and use it as fuel for the fire, but achlan, you ate it. Masikin be'kli peisein. You cannot use the shells. That's what's called muktzah. These are things that are a new entity that weren't in the capacity of as a secondary to the fruit, to the shell, to the nut. So the Rabbi Yehuda says it's forbidden. You can't use it as fuel. Rabbi Shimon says no, it's going to be permitted. Says the Gemara. The tzricha, you needed to say all these 3 cases. Why? The yashminan kamaisa, had we said the first case of shivrei kelim, so by he come Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, there Rabbi Yehuda says us. Oh, before there was a vessel. Now it's a broken piece of a vessel. That's something totally new. Vas is forbidden. But regarding the dates, beforehand it was pits. Now it's pits. And I would say it's going to be permitted. It's not a new thing. It always was pits. Had we only said the case of the pits, I would say dimikar mechasin. Oh no, but originally it was covered over. You didn't see the pit; it was in the date. Now it's uncovered, so therefore it's noiled. It's a new thing that you didn't have beforehand. Regarding the shells of the nuts, the mikar megalit. Originally you saw it. Now it's uncovered. Same as Shabbat, I would say it's okay. So tzrich is necessary, like Taisa says, that the Gemara doesn't hold that svara of because it was megalion. No, ultimately it was secondary to the nut, so therefore it wasn't muktzah. Now that it's just the shells, that has no utility. That you never had in mind to use in its own capacity. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda is going to be noiled. Therefore, we have to say all 3 cases that's forbidden as muktzah. Now the Gemara just points out that v'had Rav, that Rav says that according to Yehuda, you cannot fuel a fire with the garinim, with the pits of the dates. That was not said explicitly, rather it was through an inference. Now, as Taisa points out, that Rav says that noilid is forbidden, like Rabbi Yehuda, that we know from a Gemara, we already said in Daf Yomi base, from karche de zuzi, which are the things they would use to cover the cargo, those mats, to cover the cargo on the ships, that Rav already said that he holds his muktzah like Rabbi Yehuda. The thing that would bring a proof right now is that even by garinim, even by the pits, that you could say that before there was Garinim, now it's Garinim, still that's what we're coming to being a raya, that Rav said it's going to be usher, that he didn't say explicitly, it's from a story. What happened was as follows. Rav Ochel Tamri. Rav, on a regular weekday, was eating dates. Now, tzaddikim, they don't want to waste things, so he's throwing the pits into the oven, so it was fueling the fire. So Amalei Reb Chia, his uncle said to him, Bar Paxi, son of noblemen, meaning, son of great people, I just want you to know halacha. If you would do this on Yom Tiv, usher would be forbidden. What was he telling him? He's telling him that pits is muktzah. You can't just, on Yom Tiv, you wouldn't be able to take the pits and use it fueling of the fire, because that would be noilit. So the Gemara wonders, okay, so that's where he was coming from, but as the Mefarshim explained, the question of the Gemara now is, Kibbul Minei, did he accept it lahalacha, or lo Kibbul Minei? Did he not accept it from halacha? Meaning, halachically, did he hold that, meaning, we know Rav rules like Rabbi Yehuda, but did he say even halachically that regarding the dates, that's going to be considered muktzah or not? Says the Gemara Tashma, it's being a raya. Because another story, the Chiyasar Rav LaBavel, when Rav used to be in Eretz Yisrael, when he came to Bavel, Achel Tamri. So he ate dates on Yom Tiv, he took the pits and he threw it to the animals. So that's the same thing as fueling for the fire. Now, my love, isn't it talking about Bifarsi Yasa? What type of dates was he talking about? He was eating Persian dates. Now, what's Persian dates? Those are good dates that are very ripe. Now, what happens is when you eat it, all the fruit comes off the pits. When you finish eating the date, all you have is the pit. Now, the pit itself has no utility, so that should be forbidden as muktzah. And even so, he was permitted to move it, to throw it to the animals. Obviously, V'loi Kibla, obviously did not accept that it's noilid. He considered it not noilid, therefore, even though there was no fruit in it, you're able to throw it to the animals. Says the Gemara, no, loy. It's talking about Ba'amr Yasa. He had the Aramean types of dates, which were inferior. They didn't ripen so well, and therefore when you ate it, you couldn't get all the fruit off of the pit. So when you were left with the pits, you still had some utility for a human being because it had some of the fruit on it. So since it was fed through its what's called its mother, meaning to say the mother of the pit is the fruit, you still have some fruit on it. That's why it wasn't muktzah. That's why they able to throw it to the animals, because it still had some fruit on it. If it was just the pit, could be he would hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that actually, like Rabbi Chia told him, that it would be forbidden, it would be noilid on Yom Tov. Now, but the Gemara has an obvious question. Amalei, Reb Shmuel Bar Chanel Rav Yisrael, he says, L'Rab Yehuda, the Amad that he says, Masikim Mekalim, he says, yes, a whole utensil you could use for fueling the fire, because it has utility, you could use it for whatever you wanted to use it, since it was useful as a utensil, you could use it as fueling the fire. But he said, Ve'em Masikim Mekalim, you can't use if it broke on Yom Tov, you can't use this broken keli and use it to fuel the fire, because it's noilid. So the question is, anytime you take a whole utensil and you light a little bit, so now it already starts to break. So and this is the main point of the question, when you're coming to fuel, like turn around the fire, because sometimes you have to stoke the coals, you're moving around something that's forbidden because it's already shibikalim, it's already muktzah. How are you able to do this on Yom Tov to move it around? Says the Gemara, David Rav Masna. You do like Rav Masna. Rav Masna Marav, he says, and this is the halacha. What happens is, if let's say there's branches that broke off of a palm tree and it fell into the oven. Now, eitzim shenashu min adekal are muktzah because it was attached when Yom Tov started, which is you now let it rip it off. Now it fell into the oven. What do? You can't fuel it now because it's noilid. So he says, you know what you do is you increase on those branches eitzim muchanim, prepared pieces of wood. And then you do what's called bittul b'rayv, and the Gemara elsewhere discusses you aim avat like a tchila, that this is an exception to that rule, and you're nullified in the majority, umasikin, and then you fuel it, and that's how you could do it. You could do it through bittul b'rayv. So that's going to be the same thing over here. When you have the shibri kalim, you'll just add other pieces of wood that are not muktzah, and that's how you'll be able to move it around because it'll be bottle in the rayv. Now the Gemara goes back to the discussion of our Mishnah. We had two interpretations for what the machlokes was regarding Ner Shabbos. We had one from the previous daf regarding when it had the four criterion and ultimately was about noilid. Is it considered shivri kalim or not? The second interpretation we had just before from Rava said, no, the machlokes was simply when you fold it, does it light well or not? Those are all b'ma'imalikim. You can't light something that doesn't light so well. Rabbi says it doesn't light well, Rabbi Kiva holds it does light well. Those are two interpretations in that of the laws of Ner Shabbos. Now, the Gemara gives a second interpretation regarding to laws of Tumah, meaning on the previous daf, we had one interpretation that says, regarding to Tumah, I understand the machlokes. When you fold it, is it mevatla from a beged? If you say it's mevatel from a beged, so it's not makabel tuma. If you say it's not mevatel because all you did was fold it, you could unfold it, then it is makabel tuma. Now the Gemara brings a second interpretation regarding the machlokes in our Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer says that it is tamei, it is makabel tuma, and Rabbi Kiva that says tahira hayu that it's not makabel tuma. What's the machlokes? As follows. Rav Nunama, he says, hacha, here in the Mishnah, criteria number one is we're talking about mishleisha al shleisha askin. We're talking about that this cloth is less than 3 by 3 hand breadths. That's their machlekes regarding the laws of Tumah. That's criterion number one. And criterion number two is a mikule matlonias. We're talking about these rags that are very insignificant. That's what shanukan, that's what we're talking about over here. What would be considered insignificant rag? We're talking about, let's say you prepared the rag to stuff up the hole in the bathhouse. That's not such a significant, it's like a rag. It's not a significant thing. The whole law of Tumah is significant. And when we mentioned, Rashi just points out, if this is the interpretation of the machlokes regarding Tumah, then it must be that the other things we mentioned in the Mishnah, that you folded it, is only because of the element of not singeing it, which that was specifically the machlokes regarding lighting it for Ner Shabbos. That's why we mentioned the idea about folding it, because actually what we're saying right now has nothing to do with folding and not singeing. It's just in general. We're talking about psilas habeged, that actually will end off in being medayik from the words of psilas habeged. We're just talking about a wick from a cloth. But basically is that you're using the cloth as a rag. That's what they're discussing about. So it's less than 3 tfachim, and it's also from the insignificant rags. Because if it was more than 3 by 3 tfachim, so then actually it would be considered chashiv even if you treat it as a rag. So it's specifically less than 3 by 3 tfachim, and it's from these insignificant rags. And so that explains the Gemara. Va'azda Rabbi Eliezer l'tamei. So Rabbi Eliezer is going according to his reasoning. Rabbi Kiva tamei is going according to his reasoning. What does that mean? Now we learned in the Mishnah Masechtas came as follows. Pachis mishleisha shleisha. Again, like we said, we're talking about specifically it's less than 3 by 3 tvachim, because if it was 3 by 3 tvachim, it would be significant. It wouldn't be bottled even if you treat it like a cheap rag, even if you use it as a shmata, it doesn't make a difference. It's still very big size, so it would be mikabel tumah. Talking about it's less than 3 by 3 tvachim, and it's sheskinu, you prepared it lip pakik bayas amerchetz, to plug up the bathhouse where they had these holes that the waters would come in there to the bathhouse. They'd use it to stuff up the hole. Ulanar bayas, like they would use it to pour out the pot where you have to hold on to the end of the pot that most people have in their kitchen, that shmata that they use it to pour into the plate. Ulakanech bayas rechaim, or to wipe away the millstone. So we're talking about that you're treating these as shmata. So it's not so big. It's less than 3 by 3 tvachim, and you're using it for something insignificant. Now, these words are enigmatic, and we're going to explain them at Amud Beis, and we're going to go with Rashi. Taisa disagrees with Rashi, but we're going to say with Rashi interpretation. Whether the shmata was prepared for what? For some utility. Whether it's not prepared, doesn't make a difference. Tamei de Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says it's going to be makabel tumah. So even though it's less than 3 by 3 tvachim, using it as a shmata, it's still more than 3 by 3. It's boys. It's going to be makabel tumah. Pshuama, he says the opposite, seemingly. He says, no, whether it is prepared, whether it's not prepared, tar, it's going to be tar. Not makabel tumah. It's not significant enough. Forget about it. It's not like considered a beged. Kiva, a third opinion, he says, minamuchan, if it's prepared, he's somewhere in the middle. He says, if it's minamuchan, if this rag is something that was prepared, so then it's tummy. It's going to be makabel tumah. Significant. If it's something that's not designated prepared for utility, then tar, it's going to be tar. What does this all mean? So the Gemara explains, and then we'll show how this is the machlokes in the Mishnah. He says, "Vitem some says Rabbi B'chanan Rabbi Yechon, Hakol Moedim, everyone agree, Zarkoi Ba'ashba. If you take this shmata, this rag, and you throw it into the garbage, so then Direi Hakol Tar, everyone's going to agree that it's going to be tar, because you're insignificant. Think of a good word. I was going to say insignificizing it, but you're making it not chashiv. It's already small. It's already a shmata, and you're putting it into the garbage. Everyone agrees it's mitar. It's not a beged anymore. It's a piece of garbage. It's not a beged. Now, to continue to Amud Beis, same thing is the opposite. If you put it in your chest, if you put it in your box, so you're revealing that it's significant for you. So the Rakol Tama, everyone agrees it's Makabel Tuma, because it has a 3 by 3 etzbais, and you obviously care about it. You're putting it in your chest. You're folding it very nicely. So obviously it's Makabel Tuma. The whole machlokes was only Elisha Taloi b'magoid. You hung it on a peg. Now, a peg is less than a chest. Chest is, you're obviously treating it as respectful. But it's less than a chest, but it's more than the other case we're going to discuss of what's called achayre hadelas. If you just put it behind the door, which in Talmudic times was how significant did you consider it? So we're basically considering like 4 different types of things. We're considering garbage. Garbage, for sure, everyone agrees it's not going to be Mekabel Tumah. Chest, everyone for sure, it is going to be Mekabel Tumah. Then we have regarding these 2 cases of hanging it on the peg, which is higher than that of putting it behind the door. So we're talking about either that you hung it on the peg, or you put it behind the door, which that's more than throwing it into the garbage. So as Rashi explains, when Rabbi Eliezer says min hamuchen and she'enim min hamuchen, what does he mean min hamuchen? What does he mean prepared? That's the case of the kufsa, of the chest, that's considered prepared. Meaning obviously you're preparing it that you want to use it. What's considered shaloi min hamuchen, meaning that's a lower stage? That's the cases of mogud and the charadelis, because it's not so prepared for utility, because if you really wanted it, you really cared about it, you would put it in the chest. It's not so much. It's einim min hamuchen. We call that for Rabbi Eliezer the case of mogud and charadelis. Now, so that's what the Gemara explains. Rabbi Eliezer held midoloi zarka ba'ashba, from the fact that you're not throwing it into the garbage. So daiti levei. Obviously your intention is on it. You care about it. You want it. So therefore it's going to be mekabel tumah. Now, so then the question is, umay karle shalei min hamuchen. Then why are you calling it, since according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's considered chashav, that's mekabel tumah, as long as it's not thrown in the garbage, Rabbi Eliezer holds a mekabel tumah. So why are you calling it shalei min hamuchen, not prepared? It is prepared. You obviously do care about it. That's why it's mekabel tumah. Says the Gemara, because the legabi kufsa, because regarding the chest, lav muchen. In contrast, we consider it not prepared. But it is considered chashav enough that you do care about it, and therefore it's going to be mekabel tumah. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shua Sabahi held, no. From the fact that you didn't put into the box, which is the highest level, betuli batli, you don't care about it. And therefore, when Rabbi Shua used the word muchan, prepared, meaning that because he says prepared is not going to be mekabel tumah, he's talking about what's considered prepared is going to be mogud and achari hadelas. That those are considered prepared, and still it's not mekabel tumah. And what's shaloi min hamuchen? If you threw it into the garbage. So then says the Gemara, my correlate, so why is it calling mogud? Why is it calling the peg muchan? Since we said according to Yeshua, it's going to be batal, so then why are you calling it muchan? It's not muchan, it's not prepared. It's obviously he's considering like the garbage. Says the Gemara, yeah, but the legabi ashba, in regards to the garbage, which Yeshua is also speaking about, muchanu, it's considered prepared. But really, all of them are not going to be mekabel tumah, because you didn't put it to the chest. Obviously, you don't care about it. But again, they're using words, and that's what takes the difficulty Rashi interpretation is. It comes that each one's muchan, the shleinim, and the muchan means something else. But that's what it means. Each one is saying, Rabbi Eliezer says, beim and muchan, bein she'em and muchan is mekabel tumah, because you didn't throw it into the garbage. So why calling it einim and muchan? In regarding to the higher level, it's einim and muchan, but it's still, you still care about it. Yeshua says, no, they're both not mekabel tumah. What do you mean? What's not mekabel tumah? Mogud and achar adelas. So why calling it muchan? Because in regard to the garbage, it's considered muchan, but still it's einim and muchan. It's still not mekabel tumah because it's still not putting it into the chest. Now, who is the third opinion? Rabbi Kiva, betalu b'magud. When you hang it on the peg, which is like the second in the 4 levels, again, the highest level is kufsa, then goes mogud, then goes achar adelas, and then goes garbage. So when you hang it on the peg, Sabak Rabbi Eliezer, regarding that, he considered that as muchan. It's prepared. You still consider it significant. You hang on the peg. Obviously, still want to use it. So that's like Rabbi Eliezer holds the mekabel tumah. That the step beneath that, when you put it behind the door, so like Rabbi Shua, that he holds like Rabbi Shua, that's considered inim in the muchan, and there was not mekabel tumah, and therefore he was somewhere in the middle. But says the Gemara, and this is the kicker to explain the halacha of the Mishnah, the machlekes, ultimately Rabbi Kiva retracted to hold like Rabbi Shua, and he held that even quote what's min hamuchan, even the case of mogud, is not going to be mekabel tumah. So therefore, it comes out the machlekes in our Mishnah that we said regarding this psilas habeged, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's going to be mekabel tumah. What's going to be mekabel tumah? The case of tolu b'magid nachayri hadelas, that rag, that matlonios, that rag that's less than 3 by 3 tefachim, Rabbi Eliezer holds it's going to be mekabel tumah. Rabbi Kiva, who says it's going to be tar, is because he holds like both of them, like Rabbi Shua, that not only charay delas, but even tolu b'magid is not mekabel tumah. So the Gemara wonders, Mimai, how do you know that he retracts to hold like Rabbi Shua? Why can't he hold like the way he's quoted within that Mishnah? And what's the case they're disagreeing about? Is regarding the halacha of achari adelas. And that's where he disagrees with Rabbi Eliezer. So why do you have to say that he ultimately retracted and held like, why do you have to say that he holds like Rabbi Shua, that in both cases he held that it's not going to be mekabel tumah? Why can't you say that it's only when does he hold it's going to be tar, it's specifically by achari adelas, but not by magid? So Amar Rava, he says, I can prove it to you. Mediktani, from the fact that the words of the Mishnah said, and these were the words that we said we're going to be medayik from to explain the case of Pesiles HaBeged, is the wick of the garment. Now, calling it basilas habeged, it sounds like it's still a garment on some level, meaning it's considered significant in your eyes like a garment as mogud, which is very high level on the peg. And still, Rabbi Kiva is saying in the Mishnah that tahiri. Obviously, retracting the whole thing could be shiur. Why? Because as the Gemara explains, why are you calling it the wick of the garment? Listening psila shel beged, call it the wick of the garment, which that would sound like that. Yeah, that you totally folded up, you totally destroyed it, became totally like a wick. It's a wick of a garment. My psil is ha-beged, which that sounds like that it's the actual garment itself that you folded up, but that it's still considered like a garment on some level. Yes, because the adayin beged who, it's still a garment. It's very high level, it's like a magud, and still it's not makabel tumah. That's how we see that Rabbi Kiva retracted the whole Yeshua, and that's the machlekes in the Mishnah. Now, as Rashi points out, that's the machlekes regarding the laws of Tumatara. But regarding the lighting of the candles for Shabbos, that's like we explained before. The reason is of Rabbi Eliezer is because you need to have a wick that was singed that simply that it could light well. If not, it's not going to light well. And therefore, that's the second interpretation of the machlekes regarding the laws of Tumatara. It's regarding a rag that's less than 3 by 3 tvachim. Rabbi Eliezer held, as we quoted in the Mishnah, as long as you didn't throw in the garbage, it's going to be makabel tumah. And Rabbi Kiva disagrees, like Rabbi Shua, that no, if you didn't put into the chest, then it's a rag. And the rag, even though it's 3 by 3, it's bois, but it's less than 3 by 3 tvachim, it's insignificant, and therefore it's not going to be makabel tumah. Therefore, he says the Mishnah of Tahiri. Now, we continue with the next Mishnah, continuing on a related theme that we had in the previous Mishnah. One of the cases we mentioned that you're not allowed to use as the oil for the bameh madlik and bameh madlik was tsari, balsam. We said why? Because it smells good. And shemi yistapik, you might come to use it from it, and you're going to be liable because of mechaba, because it's considered extinguishing when you take from the reservoir the oil, because it was designated for the lamp. It's like taking away from the light, extinguishing it. So a related halacha, the Mishnah says as follows, and this halacha lamaisa. A person should not take the shell of an egg and the yimalena shemen and fill it up with oil. What they used to do in Talmudic times, which Meir Rappert told me they used an ostrich egg because it was very strong, as they have in the Living Torah Museum, and he took an ostrich egg and he punched it, and even though it was, I don't know how many years old, but pretty old, and it didn't crack. So those eggs were very, very strong. Now, what they would do in Talmudic times was, so they had this big hole in the top, which they would fill up the oil. Then they had these little holes in the bottom that would drip in because you needed to light for a long time, and their lamps were not so big. They had to have another reservoir. So they would take this eggshell, put on the top, and it would drip in, and then you would have the continuous flow of oil so that it continued lighting. And that says the Mishnah, for Erev Shabbos candles, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take the eggshell, fill it up with oil, and put it on top of the lamp, so that it should drip in, so that the light should continue going, and it'll be continuously dripping into the lamp. Now, why not? So it's, like we said, the idea, it's a gezerah, it's a concern that you might come to use the oil from the eggshell, but the problem is, since you designated this for the lamp, it's as if you're taking away fire from the lamp. You're doing machaba, you're extinguishing by taking. And therefore, you're not allowed to do it. Vafilan, even if this pool, this shleiferes is hishal cheres, even if it's made out of earthenware, which is disgusting, and generally you would say a person wouldn't take oil from there, still we make it the gezerah. You're not allowed to have a reservoir, even if it's an egg of earthenware. You're not allowed to do that either, because you might come to use it. Now, Rabbi Yehuda he doesn't have the gezerah, says it's permitted. Now, but says the Mishnah, if let's say the potter had originally attached this reservoir, he made it as one with the lamp, then it's like one vessel, and then we're not concerned because everyone knows the Isser Shabbos you're not going to take from it. It's like anytime you have one vessel, we don't make a concern. We're not going to say you're going to come to take from it. So since it's attached, you see it as one. The only concern is when you put a regular egg on top, and it looks like as if it's okay, I'm just going to take it's not a lamb. That's really machaba, so that's what we make the example. But if it's connected, then we don't have. A similar halacha is lo yimali adam ka'arish shel shemen. The person should not fill up a bowl of oil. But then the bitzad in there and put on the side of the lamp. Beyitin reish b'silin is going to put the other end of the wick b'taicha inside that bowl, so that it should go out through that hole that you have in the lamp into it. So that it should draw the oil from this bowl into this one and light. You're not allowed to do that for the same concern, because you might come to take oil from this bowl, because it doesn't look like this one, and it looks like, why can I take oil from here? Rabbi Yehuda says permitted because he doesn't have that gezer. He's not concerned. Look, you see that it's connected, and everyone knows it's machab, and therefore he doesn't make that gezer. Now, the Gemara says that The tzricha, this was just that picture that if it was already attached, then it's going to be permitted because one kli. So now the Gemara said tzricha, you need to have all three cases. Why? We had three cases that we spoke about. So the eggshell, if it's made out of earthenware, and if it's side by side. So the Gemara said you need all three. Why? The Yashmin Shreif had we said only the eggshell. B'hakam Rabban, I would say the Rabban say it's usher to do that because the kibbutz le'meis is not disgusting. Everyone eats eggs. Eggshell is not a disgusting thing. So it's just the bukim though. You might come to use the oil from the eggshell. But if it's earthenware, the meisa, where it's repugnant, it gets dirty after a while. So I would say that they would agree to Rabbi Yehuda that's going to be permitted because no one's going to come to take from it because anyways it's disgusting. So therefore you have to say that over there they hold it's usher. Now, V'yesh Mishal Cheres, had we only said the case of earthenware, but I'll come Rabbi Yehuda, I would say over there Rabbi Yehuda says permitted. But by the eggshell and Moed Rabban, I would say he agrees to Rabban that's usher because it's not disgusting. Then you have to say both cases. Now, V'yesh Min Hani Tahanach Tarti, had we said only these two cases, I would say Bahani come Rabbi Yehuda, there Rabbi Yehuda says it's going to be permitted, Mishum Delay Mifsik, because there's nothing that's in the way of on top of the lamp. So therefore, that Rabbi Yehuda says it's going to be permitted because you obviously could see it says like part of the nothing's in the way between the two of them. You see it's part of the lamp. No, that's why he says he's not concerned. But the case of the bowl, the mifsiko where there's a interruption because it's only on the side of the lamp, so it doesn't look like it's the same thing. So, maybe I would say that he would agree to Rabban that, we should make it the Gzer because it looks like a totally independent lamp. When you have on top, so Rabbi Yehuda says you could tell it's made for it. So no one's going to take from it. But here, when it looks like it's a different thing, you would think that maybe people might come to take it. So therefore, you have to say even that case too. Now, Vishmin, but he had we said only that third case, I would say, but he can Rabban. That's what Rabban say it's aser. Avo, Bahana, Tati, but the first two cases, and Mother Rabbi Yehuda would say he agrees to Rabbi Yehuda that's going to be permitted. So they would have to say all three cases. Now, we said in the Mishnah, if the potter had originally attached them, then it's going to be permitted to go ahead and light like this, because everyone could tell that it's part of it, and therefore you're not going to come to take from it. Now, however, we learned in a brisa that says, if even the homeowner himself, before Shabbos, he attached it besid with plaster, or becharsis, or with clay, DIY, like he's doing it himself, mutter, then it's permitted. Says now we said only if the potter does it, not like you do it your own homemade way. It's only if professionally was done like that. Says no, my yitzer. What does the Mishnah mean that a potter did it? It means ke'ein yitzer. How a potter would do it mean that he attached it very well, but that doesn't have to be the potter. It could even be the balabais. As long as it's attached very well, you could tell it's the same thing. No one's going to come to say, it's not the same thing. It's this a bowl. This. I could take from here. This is not the same thing. No, if you could tell that it's attached very well, that's the case that it's going to be permitted because we're not concerned you're going to come to take from it. Now, Tanya, we learned in a brisa regarding this heter of Rabbi Yehuda that he held that you're allowed to go ahead and put a pool as a reservoir and it's no problem. So Rabbi Yehuda, he says, I brought a raya to him because Pamachas Shivteinu Balias Beis Nitza Belud. He says one time we were sitting in the upper story in the attic of the house of Nitza in Lud. And they brought for us this case that he's talking about that he disagrees with Rabbanon. They brought for us an eggshell. We filled it with oil. And we made a hole in it. And we put it on top of the lamp. And we lit it for Shabbos candles. Rabbi Tarfim was there, all the elders. They didn't say anything to us. So you see it's permitted the way I hold. So they said to Misham Raya, from there it's a proof. Nah. Shani based Nitza, the household of Nitza is different. There's reasoning because they're very meticulous, they're very conscientious. There they held you let it do it, but in regular, the halacha is forbidden because we're concerned for the majority of people that they're not going to realize that and they might come to use it. Now, a related type of idea about a story that we said that we have to be meicher, we have to protest because or else, as in the story of Yehuda, that he thought that no one protested, he came to prove halacha based on that. So the Gemara brings the following story. Avin Sipera, that was his name, Garar Savsila. So he dragged the bench, Baliyas in the upper story, Deshisha, where the floor was made out of marble, where obviously if you're dragging it, it's not going to make what's called charitzim, it's not going to make grooves. Talmudic times their floors were generally earthenware, was earth, but here is an upper story made out of marble, and he dragged the bench, La'ela, in front of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar. So Amalei, he said to him, look, if I'm going to be silent when you're dragging this bench, like the colleagues of Rabbi Yehuda, when Reb Tarfon came with there, that they were silent to him, and because they didn't say anything to him, he thought, he imagined, must be it's mutter, which they said it wasn't, it's just because it's reasoning. So nothing when they churva, so then something terrible could come out of it, and people are going to think that it's permitted to do what you're doing. Rabbi Yitzchak held what he was doing and dragging, even on the marble floor, was forbidden. Why? Because first of all, Rabbi Yitzchak held like Rabbi Yehuda. That davar she'ein miskaven, although you're not intending to make a ditch when you're pulling, but it's still aser because you're doing a malacha, you're digging a ditch. Now, what do you mean a ditch? We're talking about that the floor is made out of marble. There's no ditch at all. Yes, but Gezerah Aliyasa de Shisha, we make a concern because if we let you do it in a floor made out of marble, Atalisa Dalma, you might do it in the floor, a general floor which is made out of earth, which is going to make a charitz, make a ditch. So therefore, that is usher. Now that gets into discussion, which Taisa points out, which the halacha is that, but if let's say the whole town, like we have, is everyone makes their floors out of tiles, then actually we wouldn't make a gzeira because of some other city, some primitive city. So then actually it's going to be permitted. But if, let's say, it's only certain houses, but everyone else makes it out of earth, then we do make a gzeira, and then he says, I'm going to protest. Because although you're not making a ditch when you're dragging, but generally, I hold like a behuda that you're not allowed to make a ditch. And moreover, here, even when it's tiled, we make a gzeira up to when it would be made out of earth. Now, a similar story related to this halacha of dragging the bench regarding this halacha of Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara brings that Reach Kanishta, the one in charge of the shul, who would tell people who comes in, who goes out, to sit down the students and the children, like what we call the shamish. The batzra of this name, the name of the place called batzra, as we find the pasuk in Yeshai, ki zebech lashem babatzra. So Garas Avsila, he was dragging a bench, le'elam Rabbi Yirmi Rabbah, in front of Rabbi Yirmi Rabbah. Somebody said to him, come on, who are you doing this like that you're dragging a bench? Because obviously, like Rabbi Yehuda, we said you're never allowed to drag a bench. Like we said, not on the earthenware for sure, and even by Talmud we said you can't because atu when it's not. So who are you dragging a bench? Obviously, Rabbi Shimon. That like Rabbi Shimon holds that a person's allowed to drag a bench. But that he says, Eimer the Amar. Rabbi Shimon, when did Rabbi Shimon say it's permitted to drag a bench? That's big dailim. That's if it's a large bench. The layavshir. It's not possible unless you're going to drag it. You can't carry it. It's too big. So that's Rabbi Shimon says, okay, davar she'ein miskaven, you're not intending to do it, it's going to be permitted. But B'ktana mi amar, did he say you're allowed to do it by a small bench? Small bench where you don't have to drag, even though he says davar she'ein miskaven mutter, but if you don't have to, then who said he holds it permitted? How are you dragging the bench? It's small enough that you can pick it up. So therefore he says, don't drag the bench, because even though hold like Rabbi Shimon, but you should carry it. If it's small enough to carry it, you shouldn't be dragging it. But says the Gemara, upligi de ula. This that what Rabbi Yirmi Rabbah told him is in disagreement with Ula, because the Amma Ula said that actually the opposite. He says machlekes beketana. He said the whole machlekes Rabbi Shimon Yehuda was by a small bench, meaning although you could carry it, still Rabbi Shimon says you're allowed to drag it because since you're not intending to make a ditch, so then who cares if you drag it? But Yehuda says no, since it's possible not to, it's going to be forbidden. Avol, but a large bench says Ula devyakol mutter. Rabbi Yehuda would agree that you're allowed to drag the bench because although you're making a thing, but there's no other way to take it. So since davar she'ein miskaven, it's going to be mutter. So actually, divim hakol mutter, everyone's going to agree that it's going to be mutter. So Rabbi Yirmi, he says that Reb Shimon holds small objects are usher, because you don't have to drag it. Large objects are mutter. Ula says no. The Rabbi Yehuda, he says that small objects are usher, because you don't have to. Large objects are mutter, but that Reb Shimon holds that it's going to be permitted in both cases. So therefore, that's the machlekes between Ula and Rabbi Yirmi. Now, Maser Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef asks both of them from the following brisa. The brisa says, Shimon he says, Gair Adam, a person could drag mite, a bed, kisei, a chair, v'savsel, and a bench. As long as you don't intend to make you're not intending to do that, because then it would be a meleches machsheves, and you're intending to make a ditch, which is charisha, which is forbidden. As long as you're not intending to, you could drag the chair. Now, says the Gemara as follows. Ketani gedolim. In this brisa, Reb Shimon said large items, like a bed, which you can't carry, you have to drag it. Ketani getanim. He also says small items, like a chair, which you could carry. Now, Reb Shimon is saying both of them are mutter. Moreover, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He teaches in the Mishnah Masechtas Beya that all kalim you're not allowed to drag. Now, as Rashi points out, if not for the fact that of the machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon, why would this brisa Reb Shimon have to say large things and small things? If even small things Reb Shimon says you're allowed to drag, which you don't even have to, big things would you have to say? Obviously, the small items like the chair was said because of Rabbi Shimon that even small things are going to be permitted, and the things that he said big things that is going to be that why he's saying big things? Of course, big things. If you have no choice, of course he holds it's going to be permitted. That's for Rabbi Yehuda, and that's going to be forbidden. So it says the Gemara, Kashal Tavayu. So that's difficult on both of them. Each one said that in the Machlekes Rabbi Shimon and Yehuda, one of them is going to say it's only by either one or the other. One opinion says Rabbi Shimon holds both are mutter. Rabbi Yehuda says and only small things are aser. The other opinion says that that Rabbi Yehuda holds both are aser, and Rabbi Shimon holds only small things are permitted. But here you see clearly from this brisa, Rabbi Shimon says both are permitted, And like we said, if he holds even small, it's permitted to drag. For sure, big. So why are you saying big? Obviously, to infer that Rabbi Yehuda disagrees on both, and he holds even big is even small is usher. Even big is usher for Rabbi Yehuda. So what's the point of saying it's not like either one of the interpretations? So this is the Gemara, no. Ula answers according to his reasoning. Rabbi Yirmi he answers according to his reasoning. What does that mean? Ula answers according to his reasoning that, Rabbi Yehuda agrees that when it's very large, it's going to be permitted to drag. But it says mita, a bed, which we're inferring that Rabbi Yehuda says that's going to be aser. But dumi de kise. We said mite kise b'safsel. And they're all same types. The bed is similar to the chair, which is small. That Rabbi Yehuda says is going to be aser. But a really large bed, then the holds is going to be permitted. And Rabbi Yirmi he answers according to his reasoning too, that when we say kise, a chair, was not a small chair. It was dumi demita. It was a very large chair, like a bed. That Rabbi Shimon says is going to be permitted, but when it's really small, then Rabbi Shimon would hold that it's going to be aser, and therefore it's according to both of them. Fine, so that's not difficult. But then the Gemara moves on to the next case. Most of Rabba asked from a Mishnah Masechtas Klaim on Rabbi Yirmi Rabba, which ultimately refutes him from. The Mishnah is talking about the laws of Klaim. So the halacha is that meichrik sus, those people who are working the garment business in the suit stores, and they're selling a garment, he works in some non-Jewish store, and he's selling a garment of klaim, of shatnez, that's made with wool and linen. So the Mishnah says, meichin kedarkan. So he could sell it in the normal way. Mean to say, how does he sell it? So he puts on this beautiful suit in the marketplace, and everyone's looking and says, hey, nice suit. He says, hey, you want one? He says, come with me right into the store, I'll sell it to you. Why? How's he allowed to wear the climb suit? It's forbidden to wear climb. So the reason is the Torah only made the wearing forbidden that it's going to be used in the way clothing is usually used for, which is to warm you up, the way people usually wear it. And similarly, even when you're doing the halach of halah, it's also the same thing as wearing, that you have some type of benefit from it. Here, you're not getting benefit from it. You're not, meaning in the essence of clothing. Of course, you're selling something, but you're not getting the benefit of the article of clothing, as the Mishnah says. As long as you're not having in mind, when, let's say it's in the summertime, to protect you from the sun, or let's say it's in the winter to protect you from the elements of the winter, as long as you're not intending to, this Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon, who says we go based on the person's intent. My intent is not to have benefit from the climb, it's just to sell it. As Tosfos points out, which is the halacha, as long as it's not what's called psik reishi. Let's say it's freezing outside. I'm saying, I'm not intending to have pleasure from the jacket, but it is. It's inevitable that it's giving you pleasure because you're wearing something else that you're being protected from the elements. You don't need this to protect you. So it's no psik reishi, as we'll see later on in the Masechta. Rabbi Shimon agrees if it's inevitable that it's going to be asur. It's not inevitable. I don't need this to protect me from the elements, and I'm not intending for it to protect me. So then it's going to be permitted. Now, the Mishnah tells us about snuin, what we call the discreet ones. People that they're very upstanding, they want to distance themselves from anything that even smells from something that's prohibited. So although you're not really doing anything, but what they do is they do something else. They're mafshilim b'makal acharein. They hang it on the stick behind them, and that's how they carry it in the marketplace. They don't put it on. That's what they do. Says the Gemara to ask on your Rabba B'Hacha over here in this case. The efshir, where it's possible for every single person, lamevet, to do, not through a prohibited way, because you don't have to wear the suit to sell it. You could do kitsnun like the discreet ones, which the chikitan dami, that's the equivalent of the small bench, which you don't have to drag. You could pick it up, and still we see v'chiloi meskaven. If you're not intending to do the prohibition, Shimon says it's going to be permitted to do. Says the Gemara, that refutes Rabbi Rabba, because what do you see? You see Rabbi Shimon allows even to drag not just the big bench, but even the small bench, which you could pick up, which Rabbi Rabba said he holds going to be asur. That's the same thing as wearing the suit. You don't have to do this, you could do this. And still we say, since it's Davash and Miskav and you're allowed to do it, that's like dragging the small bench, and therefore that's a refutation, and that's actually how the halacha is Rabbi Shimon, that he holds that all cases, Gedalim, Ketanim, are permitted as long as it was Davar, She'ein Miskav. So we'll see that on the next daf when we continue with the Mishnah. Some ideas we spoke about in today's daf, Masechta Shabbos Daf Chavtes, was we spoke about a second pshat in the machlekes in the Mishnah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's not writing. So we had a second shot in the machlekes. Oh, now it's writing. We said between Rabbi Laza and Rabbi Kiva regarding if you're allowed to light the Ner Shabbos with this what we call psilas habeged. So what's this machlekes? So this second interpretation says it's not like the first interpretation because of noilid, which had these 4 criteria. It's not that such a complicated case. Very simple. Rabbi Eliezer says it's forbidden because you can't light with a garment or a wick that wasn't singed. It just doesn't light well. So because it doesn't light well, so that's why you can't use it. Very simple. So then the Gemara asks, well, what do you do with the brisa then? That actually supported the first interpretation that we said. He heard halacha of, it has to be exactly 3x3 etzba'is. So the first interpretation had it because that was the case of Noilid. But now that we're saying it's not going on our Mishnah, because our Mishnah has nothing to do with 3x3, it's just any garment that you didn't singe. So what does that have to do? That we said has to do with the laws of Tumah, which we had a machlekes. And we're coming to say like the opinion that says you don't need what's called chutz min hamalal. You don't have to have 3 etzba'is plus because of the hem. The hem takes up some of the garment, and if you're going to hem it, it's going to be less than. And many people have that when they go to the tailor, you realize suddenly when it's like they take some of the hem, suddenly you don't have as much space as you thought. That's what we're saying. No, it's even if it's exactly 3x3, it's going to be makabel tumah, even though when you're going to hem it, it's going to be less than that. Then we had 3 cases that were machlekes. 3 cases that were machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon regarding the Isra of Noilid, which related back to the discussion of the previous daf. One was regarding shivrikim that we mentioned previous daf, can use as fuel. So Rabbi Yehuda says asr because that's totally Noilid. Then you have to say the next case of the date pits where, that's also Noilid because previously it was covered. And the bigger chiddush was even the nutshells where it was always uncovered. Still, he holds that that's considered noilid because ultimately the shell used to be secondary to the nut, so it wasn't muktzah. Now it's a whole new thing by itself. If it's going to be asr. Now, so then the question the Gemara asks: so wait a second, how do you ever go ahead and fuel with kalim, which Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to? Right away becomes sheber kli. How could you keep on moving around the fire? Is what you do is you add on eitzim muchanim, which are not muktzah, and then you're going to have what's called bittul b'raiv, and therefore then the majority makes it that it's a permitted mixture that you're allowed to mix, and therefore it's not going to be muktzah. Then we had a second shot. We first had a second shot in the halacha of the Ner Shabbos case, which was the same wick, the wick that was twisted but not singed. Then we say there was another machlekes there regarding specifically the laws of tumah. They had a second shot in what was their machlekes. So the 2 criterion was we're talking about that's less than 3 by 3 tvachim. So it's not so significant as it's starting off, because it's not so big. It's still more than 3 by 3 spice, but it's not 3 by 3 tvachim. Additionally, we're talking about that it's rags that you use for like things like just cleaning up or whatever. So it's like the shmata. So it's not so significant. Now, what's their machlekes? So it's going l'shay tasim in the Mishnah, and essentially what it comes down to, the way Rashi says it, is a peg. If you're hanging the rag on a peg, you got the shmata hanging on the peg, so you're not putting it into a box. So it's not in the kufsa, but you didn't throw it into the garbage either, so it's somewhere in the middle. Is that considered a beged, or is that mevatel it already? I mean, it's a rag, it's small, you're not putting it into you don't put it away in the closet, you're just throwing it around. So is that a beged or not? So that's their machlekes. And that's the wording of the Mishnah when we call the psilas habeged. Why are you calling it psilas habeged, not shell? You don't put in shell habeged. Why not? Because it's still considered a beged. What case is still like a little bit of beged? That's this intermediate case of when it's on a peg. Still, Rebbe Kiva says, Tahirihi, because like we said, he ultimately retracted and he held like Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Shua says anything that's not in the kufza is considered batel. That's their machlekes regarding this psilas habeged, where it's like this rag, it's less than 3 by 3 tvachim, and you use it for insignificant things. That was the machlekes regarding this mikabel tamana. Then we went to the next Mishnah. We had a machlekes regarding the halacha of when we're concerned you might come to use the oil that's in the reservoir, because that's going to be considered mechaber, because it's really part of the candle. So we had 3 cases that was a machlekes. We had the shvefer shel beya, the eggshell, where, we could understand why the chacham would be concerned, because it's not disgusting, so you might come to use it. Then we have to say the case of even if it's it's an earthenware egg on the top, because, so nothing's in the way. But that's why Rabbi Yehuda would hold it's asr. The third case we have to say, even though it's mifsa cuts from the side, so then we would think, Rabbi Yehuda would agree over there because it doesn't look like it's from the same thing. Even over there, we have to tell you that Rabbi Yehuda holds that is going to be mutter, because he's not concerned. You could tell it's from the reservoir and it's from the lamp, and you're not going to come to take from it. Now, the Mishnah said, if a potter went and connected it, so then it was attached, so then it's going to be permitted, because you could tell it's part of the lamp, and no one's going to take from a lamp itself. Now, when we had a brisa, it doesn't mean literally the potter, it could be ke'ein yetzer, I mean even the balabais, as long as he attached it very well, you could tell it's from the same thing. Then we brought a few different stories that you have to protest, because if not, they're going to think you didn't protest, like we had the story that Allah is like a Yehuda, because Reb Tarfon and the Zakanim, they didn't say anything. Now, they didn't do it because there was reason, but really they held that actually Allah is not like a Yehuda. It's just that they didn't say anything, but then they might make a mistake to be lenient by Shveferes, where they really didn't agree. And so too, we had a story with Alisa the Shisha, that where the floor was made out of marble, that they protested because it's a gzeira for the case of when it's made out of earth, that it's like the halacha of charisha, because you're making a charitz. So that is a concern. Now, related, we had this machlekes regarding, because one of the stories was regarding dragging a chair, which the machlekes Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda, we'll talk about later on the Masechta, regarding what's called a davar she'ein miskaven, where you're not intending to make a ditch. All you do is you want to have that chair. So you had a machlekes. And we had a machlekes in the machlekes regarding if you're allowed to drag the chair or not. One opinion says their whole machlekes is regarding small items. But by big items, everyone's going to agree, even Rabbi Yehuda, that it's going to be permitted, because it's no way you can't get it without dragging it. So then he holds it's going to be permitted. The other opinion says no, the machlekes is by large items, but by small things, everyone agrees. Even Reb Shimon is going to agree that it's going to be also, because it's possible. You don't have to, so then he's not going to let it. And that Gemara refutes that interpretation of Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbah, because we had a Mishnah that said that those who sell garments of Klayim are permitted to wear it, even though it's possible to do like Tznun and not to do it. So you see that even though it's possible, but since you're not intending to, it's going to be permitted. So we see that really the truth is Rabbi Shimon holds it's always permitted, even by Ketanim, and therefore that refutes that interpretation. He holds in all cases, Davar She'ein Miskaven is going to be mutter. Thank you to any time for hosting us.